Howdy, everyone, and welcome to the one and only true hungover podcast. This ain't no Irish shit. This is real, homegrown American podcasting.
Vaughn, I want to start a war.
We can't use that anymore, so we're going to start over because I used the S word. We're going to get banned from YouTube.
Oh, shit. Wait, did you? I didn't even hear the word that you used.
I used the word shit.
Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. This is not suitable for children, YouTube. I say that every single time I upload a video. Welcome to the Hungover Podcast, not the Hungover Podcast or whatever heck those guys call it. Those Irish lads. I'm talking to you guys. Next time you guys look up your podcast and you find our podcast, you better listen to this one because I'm starting a war with the Hungover Podcast.
What if we invited them onto our podcast and then it was the combined Hungover Podcasts? And then from now on, we're just one, Voltron of podcasting.
For reference, I'm just discussing... I was discussing with Ivan that I was trying to find our podcast on iTunes recently, and I came across another The Hungover Podcast on iTunes, and it's really annoying that they're above us. So we're trying to be the best hungover podcast, and really we should be the only, but I guess iTunes doesn't work that way. Anyways, today we're going to be discussing... we'll figure that out, and we'll give updates for you guys throughout the year on our success on crushing that podcast into the ground. They don't
just demolishing them like a mortar and pestle. Are you the pesto or the mortar?
Oh,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I'll hold them. I'll hold them while you grind them down. Today we're going to be discussing Sinatraa Juan. Or is it Woon? No, it's Juan.
I think it's Juan.
I don't know what ethnicity he is. It's some Asian ethnicity. Is he? He's half. I can tell.
He's American.
He's a halfie.
I know that.
I can tell because I'm a halfie. And we're trying to take over. We're trying to infiltrate the old white untainted blood. You know what I mean? You all the halfies out there know what I'm talking about. This is phase 1 of the Asian takeover. Don't worry, we've already infiltrated your blood. I'm proof of it. Anyways, I'm not
allowed to say anything in this part of the podcast.
And demonetized. Okay, I've been working really hard. Not that we monetize our videos or anything, but I've been working really hard to not get copyright stricken, and success. That's all I gotta say. I changed one song, and that's all I had to do. Anyways, nice. I hope you guys enjoy the new...
Even though I still have the subscription.
I know, and it's so annoying. Anyways, we're going to be discussing Sinatraa, who was a pro Overwatch League player. Of course, if you guys know the Hungover Gaming YouTube channel, you know that we really like Overwatch, or used to at least. And we had a whole Overwatch League
back when
video.
I gamed.
Back when, oh my god, he's Korean and German, says Captain Video. Thank you for the update. What's up, Captain Video? Welcome to the podcast. Of course, you can check this podcast out live on twitch.tv/jujubesgood and be part of the conversation yourself on Thursday nights. That's usually when we record around 9 p.m. Eastern. But we're going to be discussing some allegations against him. We can't use that word, I don't think. I was trying to title it on Twitch. I'm going to use it. Sexual allegations. I'm using it. Demonetize us. Sexual allegations against Sinatraa from his ex-girlfriend, I believe. And Twitch would not let me title it that. So it looks like we're entering an era, which we also wanted to discuss, an era of extreme censorship on the internet. Even if it's going to be, we're just going to be discussing and commentating on it. It's not like we have any stake in the game, So it's not like we're putting it out there. I just don't understand why I can't put the title sexual allegations. Anyways, Ivan, I'm rambling on as usual.
It happens.
It's because we record this after we've both worked at least an 8-hour day, and it's probably a bad idea.
Yeah,
but it's
the time
idea.
we've got.
This is it. This is the 1 hour we have. So we're gonna record.
This is our friendship.
Anyways, Ivan, what have you been getting into this week? And
Man,
did you drink anything?
So much. Yesterday, I came home after a long day. Laura had a call that she was on when I came home, so I was like, I guess I'm gonna hang out with myself. So I
didn't
made
text
a bath.
Julien about playing Overwatch or.
It's true. I was tired, so I made a bath instead of playing Overwatch or Call of Duty.
I know.
Poured myself some limoncello.
Nice.
And set up my computer so that I could watch Tom Segura and take a bath and drink.
Awesome, man.
It was amazing. Pro tip for making sure that you have warm bath water is put 3 pots on the stove and boil water. That way you can always add boiling water to your bath.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
How long were you bathing for? I haven't taken
45 minutes.
Okay, so at that point you need it. I haven't taken a bath since I was in probably middle school, my friend. I don't think I have.
You're missing out.
I know. I'm not saying it's not for
you toss a couple bath bombs in there.
Enjoyment.
You get the aromatics.
Bomb. Yeah, I always
get the
did
little
like
fizz.
the smell and the fizz. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to do. Did you shower before you did?
No.
Nice. That's the kind of bath
I
I'm
go straight in.
About.
I shower after.
So that I know it's totally fine to do either. Whichever one you want to do. The reason I cannot bath in my current place is because of the setup of the bath. Our house is pretty much sinking, from the walls of either side of our building inward. So the middle of our apartment is sinking in, and I believe our bathroom is sinking the other way, which is weird. I don't know how. So
you've noticed this since you've been there?
I mean, are you kidding me? As soon as we walked in, we noticed. It's great. It's horrible. If you ever want to hang anything on our walls, it's like, what is going on? It cannot. It will instantly tilt. But you have to have at least 2 screws, and you have to calibrate it. Anyways, the reason why
sitting there triangulating.
Exactly. So the people who installed our bath were too lazy. You have to put a bath on I believe a 15-degree incline, so all the water runs towards the drain, obviously. Sure. And so you can calibrate that by putting, you can wedge the one side of the bath up with literally wood. You could do that. So, sure. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to use the incline of the house instead. So the way we have our bath set, so it's really crazy though, because the incline of the house is angled, even though this is contrary to what I just said, in the bathroom, I guess, is angled towards our window, which would be the wall of the bathroom. But the piping comes up from the other side of the bathroom. So they have the drain on the other side of the bath, and of the the drain is not directly under the faucet, is what I'm trying to say. It's on the opposite side of the bath. So you can't sit on either side of the bath if you were just to have a bath.
Okay.
Because you'd be sitting on a drain. I mean, you could sit on the drain if you wanted, but that could lead to an awkward situation, give or take. And you definitely can't sit on the other side, because then you have the faucet digging into your back. So that's why we don't take baths in our apartment.
That's a real shitty setup.
I mean, I'm not a bath you know what? I haven't taken a bath since middle school. Maybe I'm a bath person. Hell if I know. Send some
all I'm saying is
bath bombs.
Sponsor
the podcast, Bath Bombs. We will take baths on podcasts. That would be cool. A bath podcast?
That's really dangerous for content.
Well, okay, we wear the bathing suit. It's fine. Take a nice bath.
And that would be appropriate. That's like a beach day.
Beach day, bath day, podcast. We're starting a new podcast, everyone. Bath day
Beach
podcast.
day, bath day pods.
Yep.
We're inviting the Irish guys to that as well.
You can have the Hungover podcast. This one's better. Anyways, Ivan, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you that.
No, it's cool.
It's good
that
content.
Is really a difficult setup for you. I was having trouble visualizing it, but then I got there. I was there. I was with you. And then I didn't want to be. I wanted to be right here enjoying my time. I watched Coming to America.
Whoa. Very nice.
A very new film.
Oh, wait, it came out?
The second one. Yeah. It's out, buddy.
Oh,
it's there to watch.
That's amazing. Eddie Murphy. God damn.
Yeah.
That guy's old.
It's a little
How old is he?
difficult to watch. It's like it's one of those movies that is both like winking at the audience
59.
that it's definitely like over simplifying things, but I don't know. It's like
well, the reason the first one was good is because of the time it came out, right? It was good because of the era it came out in.
Yeah,
you can't capture it twice.
You definitely feel the update, like the women who are the royal bathers, for instance, their tits aren't out. They're covered up, and there's a scene with royal bathers in which one of the royal bathers is a man. Well, it's a different era, right? It's a different age. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different.
Nothing wrong with tits.
I think they're trying to say that this movie is slightly different than the previous version.
That's fine. That's also fine.
Yeah,
it's probably for the better.
Some of the costumes were great, incorporated a lot of different, but a lot of African. Oh, sorry, tired. Patterns and definitely some cultural symbolism. And it was very pretty in terms of the costuming, bright colors, great music, some spectacular performances by several actors, including James Earl Jones, delivering what Laura said was the best version of a man dying of all time. And I thought it had some funny moments. I thought it also had some meh moments. I thought probably Coming to America was a better movie overall, but it's one of those movies, and we can get into it in a spoiler way later, but it finds it difficult to straddle the line between like obvious parody on people's stereotype and stereotyping itself. So it's a complicated movie. You can't obviously watch it and take everything for granted. Like, this is how people see Africa, etc. But like,
that was the funny part of the movie, though, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's definitely where some of the humor comes from.
I don't know. I guess. Right. I mean, I always think of people who are like stand-up comedians who are not white.
Yeah.
I always say, or like from Africa, or like specifically Trevor Noah is a good reference, right?
He's in the movie.
Is he? That's awesome. That's actually really cool. So I always think of him particularly with the Daily Show appearance. I mean, he's the anchor of the Daily Show, the host. Sure. I always think of him, and when any sort of ethnic joke is made, like he'll throw in his African accent for when he's making fun of his mom or something, right? And I always think it's like always the same joke too. So I just always think of that, and I want to know how he feels about that sort of joke, and whether or not it's like, is this actually funny to you, and do you feel like it's just a cheap laugh? Because I think it's funny, but I also am not African, so I don't know if it's funny at all to him. You know what I mean? It's like you're making like, oh, he's the South African guy, so he's got to make the South African joke. I don't maybe that's or not the he can make the African jokes, so it's like, is that a thing? I don't know. Or do you know what I'm saying?
I do understand.
Does
it's
he
like
feel
both
like
playing
it's a cheap
to the
laugh?
stereotype, or like the angle of comedy, but it also speaks to your experience. So it's a difficult blend of like, am I being genuine to myself, or is this like a cheap laugh generated?
Yeah, or like literally
for not
any
working hard?
Asian stand-up comedian in America.
Did you think that way when Jon Stewart did his Jewish Jewish New Yorker voice, or like a Jewish voice?
I mean, I was a lot younger then, right? Jon Stewart hasn't been alive for like 10 years. He just shows up on the Daily Show. Or sorry, the Colbert Show, when he comes out from under his desk, which is actually hilarious. I liked it because it was New Yorker. I don't think it was. I mean, I didn't. I liked the bits he did when, like, the pizza bit about the Chicago pizza. That's hilarious, man.
It is funny
when it's bits about New York. I think that's hilarious. But also, I guess in a way, maybe that's a cheap joke too. But I don't think that's too much of a cheap joke. I just always want to know. I'm not saying it's a cheap joke or anything, what Trevor Noah does. I just want to know if he thinks it's a cheap joke. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I'm totally happy if he's happy doing that. But if he feels like he has to do that in order to get a laugh, then, or like, because he doesn't write all his stuff, right?
There's a team
Daily
of writers.
Show people write for him. So he would probably be able to say, no, I'm not going to say that, because he's famous enough and that type of stuff. But I just want to know if he goes through with some of his jokes and doesn't necessarily like them. That's all I wanted to say.
I think on a much less professional level, I find it not problematic, but I very much pick and choose the moments when I'll do a Russian accent. You know?
We like all the Russian accents, don't worry. Captain Video definitely does.
Do you feel weird about doing like a Chinese accent?
No, I'm totally happy to make fun of anyone who's Chinese. It's within me. It's just hilarious. I think it's super funny. I've not really I'm usually pretty lighthearted about that stuff. I'm not I don't get easily offended when someone else, even if someone's not Asian, makes a joke about Asian people. Even that stuff with the I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I guess Dr. Seuss got canceled, right, on Twitter. Not really, but it's because people didn't really understand what was going on. Like they they stopped publishing
six
books, of which one of them was one of my favorites, actually, Scrambled Egg Super. And I think that's the one with the Asian imagery that they depicted, and that's why they withdrew it. I'm not sure if that was the one, but they had Chinamen running. I didn't think it was too offensive. It's just like they called them Chinamen and they were running. I don't know. It's not like they're... I don't know. I just feel like some people jump too far ahead. If I say I don't know, like I just feel like people jump to conclusions too quickly and say, "Oh, that's racist," immediately if there's any sort of reference of like a Chinese person, like, oh God forbid, like, wow, they exist, you know. So I don't, or like it, or it's a black person. I mean, obviously there's ways to depict them that like you know, African American people that reference things in the past and how they were thought to be, like with the fat lips and all that stuff, right? And like the black skin and like that stuff is racist, right?
Yeah.
So depicting them that way is racist. Stuff. And yes, depicting Chinese people with buck teeth and that type of stuff is racist, because you're saying that all Chinese people have that sort of structure with their teeth. But just having, I don't know, I feel like sometimes people jump way too far in advance to conclusions to say something's racist when it's, I honestly don't think it's, but I guess I'm not an artist or anything related to that, so I don't know. I have no specific examples right now, so what I'm saying is not really relevant, but
well, like I was saying, I was discussing Coming to America with a colleague, and they didn't like it at all. They thought the costumes looked cheap. No, the second one. Okay. They liked the first one, but they thought that the second one was like, it looked cheap. Costumes? Terrible production design. It was bad, and I was like, well, maybe it wasn't meant for you. Maybe it was meant for like a black audience that would understand some of the subtleties. Like when we had our discussion of Crazy Rich Asians, and there was like that mahjong scene, and I was fucking lost. But I'm guessing people who play mahjong, particularly, it's a very popular Asian game.
Jewish people or Asians? Yeah, there are two people who understood that scene.
You know, maybe it's some coded language that I don't fully understand, and they were like, "That's racist." I was like, "How is it racist for
Asian
me
people to play
think that?" Well, no, this was about Coming to America, but for black artists to make a movie that has like a greater appeal to black people.
Yeah,
that's not racist. That is a complete misunderstanding of the term racism. Mm-hmm. Like the Tuskegee experiment, that's racism. Blocking, redlining housing so that black wealth doesn't accrue generationally.
Yeah,
that's racism. Like there are microaggressions and things like that also constitute probably racism. I can't think of direct examples now, but there are plenty that other people can fill in the dots. But people making a movie that slants towards an audience that they can speak to is not racism. And it was interesting because, like, Coming to America, it was filmed at Tyler Perry's studio in Atlanta. Yeah. So that's, a black filmmaker created this studio that they can make movies in. Eddie Murphy made this movie with a predominantly black cast. And, I think it has representation. It has storytelling that is linked to a different experience. I think it's good to have those stories and those movies, even if it falls flat in a lot of different places.
Yeah, because there's plenty of you can't. Right, it's just like there's those types of movies just aren't getting funded to be made at enough frequency, so that, like, what I'm saying is you have a whole sample size of movies with just white people in it, right? and so surely there's some that are really great and some that are really shitty. But there's only 2 in recent years, I guess, of an entirely black cast. There's like Black Panther in this movie. I guess I don't know. I don't know who's in this new movie, but and then I mean those are the 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe there are more. I don't know, but so it's all right for this type of movie to fall flat, like you're saying.
And I'm not saying that was the whole way through.
Not that it did.
I'm saying it's a movie. There are points that are bad. There are points that are good. Like, you know, you'll find it. I thought the costuming was great. I thought the like disparaging interpretation of Africa was really hard to like get over. But it's clearly, I don't know. It's like this mix of like it's clearly so wrong that it's making fun of that view.
Oh, good.
Right? But it's also like that view is still very prevalent there, and how many people are going to interpret it as like that's real. So on some levels it's like people could get offended. On other level it's like people could get offended because they think other people will find it offensive. And I think that's problematic.
Right. Yeah, did you find it funny? Was it a funny movie?
There were moments that were funny. I mean, it wasn't funny all the way through. I don't think it was as funny as the original.
And then also, I just lost that question. It's not important. Did the first one take place in New York City?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Did this one also take place in New York City?
No.
Damn.
Almost,
Too expensive.
almost not at all.
The price for filming in New York City since the last one was filmed has skyrocketed. So they couldn't afford it anymore. Where does it take place?
In
New York City.
No, they go to New York City, but it takes place mostly in Zamunda, the African country where the fake African country where Eddie Murphy is from. Eddie Murphy's character.
So it's like as if they're going back.
Yeah, so they go to America. It's the basic premise that you unlock in like the first 10 minutes of the film. Mm-hmm. Slight spoiler here. Skip ahead 60 seconds. Eddie Murphy had a son that he didn't know about in America who would be the rightful heir to Zamunda. So he goes to New York City, takes that guy out of Queens, and brings him to Zamunda. And it's like funny. A fish out of water story.
That's a funny premise. I like that.
As well as dealing with like the patriarchy and women's right to rule and representation in a very like blunt and not very engaging way, but you know, whatever. It's a movie. It doesn't always have to be like Moonlight.
Right. How did you watch it? I'm just curious.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Sick.
It's an Amazon movie.
Oh.
So.
Oh. How do you feel about that? An Amazon movie.
As a person who makes movies that are put out on Hulu, I would say streaming platforms are excellent. And a diversity thereof would be great as well.
Very cool.
Let's make sure to watch films on Hulu.
Yes. Don't forget to subscribe to Hulu, the greatest streaming platform of them all. That's awesome, Ivan. Did you get into anything else this week?
I played a little D&D. Mm-hmm. I was able to go cross-country skiing once, but now it's like 60 degrees up here in Syracuse. It's crazy warm.
Right now.
It's awesome. It was beautiful. I got to eat lunch outside today, and I was so excited.
That's awesome. I don't get excited about that type of stuff. I've never really liked eating outside either.
It was just 30 minutes outside, which was and away from my desk. Usually I eat because due to COVID rules, you have to eat at your desk. And that means that from the time I get into work, I don't leave my desk until I leave work, basically. Like I'll go back and forth for like 2 minutes every few hours, maybe, like to deliver a message or something. But basically, I spend 10 to 12 hours behind the same desk.
Nice.
Dude, it's mind-numbing.
What was that thing in France where they're finally allowed to eat at their desk or something, and everyone's getting mad about it? I don't know.
I don't know.
They find not important.
French unions are very strong, and I support being able to eat away from your desk because if you eat at your desk, you're gonna do work, but you should have a 30-minute break.
No, of course you should. It's important. I'm not, I don't know. I don't. For me, eating outside would mean I have to find some place to squat down and eat because I work in New York City.
Oh yeah, I work in Manhattan. It's hard to find a park bench. If you're not in Central Park, there's nowhere.
I actually work right by Central Park, so I could do it. I just don't want to walk. Oh my god, it's like so far. It's like 3 blocks away. I don't want to do it. That's like half
that's
my
like a 10-minute walk right there.
Exactly.
So you have 10 minutes to get to the park, 10 minutes to scarf down your food, and 5 minutes to hate yourself and then run back.
What's the point? Might as well just squat down in the basement and do it there. That's my job. So I just save time that way. Otherwise, that's good. You got to eat outside, and you watched Coming to America too.
Yeah, I don't have my glasses today because I was at work. It was yesterday. My art director's desk is like right next to the graphic designer's desk. Mm-hmm. So I came over to talk to the art director, and my glasses fell off of my head and onto the floor. I realized almost as soon as I started talking to the art director that I had already asked this question like the day before, and I had presented no new information. I was just basically reminding myself that this conversation had happened. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fuck, there's no reason to have this conversation. I'm just annoying this guy. So as soon as I started the conversation, I was basically like, okay, I need to get out of this conversation. My glasses had fallen. I didn't want to pick them up because I was like, I'm about to bend down and pick these up in 20 seconds when I leave this conversation. At that moment, as I'm saying, fuck my glasses and keep going with my conversation, I say it out loud. At that moment, the graphic designer decides, having been at her desk for 4 hours, it's time for me to get a seltzer.
Nice.
So seltzer she walks out and steps right onto my glasses with her boots. And I'm like, no. I'm watching it happen, and I watch her leave her desk, and I'm like, there ain't no way she's going to step on my glasses. Immediately, she stepped on my glasses.
Did she break them?
I was like, what are the fucking chances that I walk over, I drop my glasses, and in that minute that my glasses are on the ground, she, who hasn't left her desk in 3 hours, is like, I need a seltzer water.
So she broke your glasses.
She bent the one arm down, so I had to take pliers and bend it back. So they're worse for wear, but not like fully broken.
That sucks.
It was really so horrible.
Anything else, Ivan?
No, that's about it. That was my story that I hope to become a breakout video.
That will become a breakout video. Trust me. I'm gonna have to find an interesting thumbnail for that.
You know, Surefour is he's signed with Sentinels to become a content creator, and Sentinels they don't have an Overwatch team. They do Fortnite, Valorant, Apex Legends, and Halo.
Huh.
I knew he was taking a break from Overwatch for a little bit, but
so do you think he's gonna do Halo or something, or Halo.
He's playing Apex right now.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. That's cool. Well, for me, Ivan, I guess we'll just jump right back into it.
Yeah.
I don't have anything too riveting to tell a tale about. I finally finished Final Fantasy 15 for the first time ever. This is my third time playing the game.
Way to go.
From restarting it. I finally beat it. I will have to say the ending of the game, story-wise, left me just as confused as when I started and they were playing Stand By Me and the boys were pushing the car and I don't really understand what's going on. I guess I have to watch the movie. I'm not sure. There's a movie related to this video game, and maybe it explains everything. I'm not really too interested in watching it, to be honest. But I will say, so I believe you fight 5 or 6 bosses just back to back at the end of that game. And I will have to say they are all really fucking cool fights.
Nice.
And you get to there's some really cool cutscenes. I think the way they handled summons in that game is actually one of the coolest renditions of summons in any Final Fantasy game. Essentially, there's only 5 summons in the game, and they're these massive gods that will just obliterate everything. But the cool thing is you can't just choose to summon like in most Final Fantasy games. It's just like another selection on a menu. You're like, oh, I'm gonna summon Bahamut right now or something, and just do a lot of damage. The cool thing about summons in this game is that you have to hit certain criteria in battle, and you have to be in a certain part of the world, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in your battle. So they only pop up every now and then, and they're like these really cool cutscenes where Noctis is like saved by this gigantic god summon, and I don't know. It's a really cool. The cutscenes are really cool. You should go check them out on YouTube or something. So I think it's a really cool idea that the summons are not controlled by Noctis, but he has access to them, or they're always watching him, and they'll come and save him if he needs it or something like that. So I thought that's a really cool idea of how to do summons. I'm excited to see what they do in Final Fantasy 16, which is coming out on PS5. Really excited for that game. I also I think I said I beat Yakuza 1. So I started Yakuza 2 Kiwami, which is super cool. That game runs in the Yakuza 6 engine, which was the most recent Yakuza game, or the second most recent Yakuza game. So this game looks significantly better than Yakuza Kiwami, which is awesome. It's more Yakuza. Go check me out on Twitch if you want to see me play that game. And otherwise, I forgot to tell the podcast, but Nikki and I started watching another anime called The Promised Neverland. It's a little
intriguing
ridiculous name. It's a little ridiculous show about 12-year-old kids.
Interesting. Okay.
Essentially, they're raised in what they believe is an orphanage all their life up until the age of 6 or 12, I believe. And they're raised by this so-called mother, and she ends up taking, every time someone ages up to that age, they quote unquote get adopted, and they are never to be heard of again. So essentially some of the kids at the orphanage ended up figuring out that they're actually being raised as food, and they're being raised for demons to be eaten. They're being harvested. Their brains are being harvested by demons. And
Damn.
The mother is in on it, and she's there to raise the kids and make sure they're really well taken care of, and all that type of stuff. So the first
Tasty.
season is essentially them figuring that out. I guess I should have said
spoilers.
Oh well, it's not okay. Sorry, I'll put a disclaimer on the video. Sorry, I should have said that. But it's essentially them figuring it out and then escaping from the orphanage. And it's super cool anime shit that goes on. It's like the level of storytelling in anime has gotten pretty complex, and they do it really well. They always leave you on a cliffhanger, and really they just keep adding thing after thing after thing that, like, you won't believe it now. It's so cool. It's just like all, I don't know if it's, I guess it's sort of like how modern TV shows have evolved, right? Like, they've been able to tell these really engaging stories that keep you coming back for more each episode. And so I think anime has taken a similar turn, although I'm not the... Apparently, we started watching the second season, and then a lot of people have been telling me this anime is based off of manga, like most anime. And a lot of people have been telling me that the second season is not as good as the manga or whatever. Like, they didn't go through this, and this. So I always think that the anime that are the best are the ones that aren't based on manga and have free reign to do what they want within the animation and character design and story development and all that stuff. Like, if you look at Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, I honestly think Evangelion is really one of the best shows, as ridiculous as it is. I think it's a really interesting anime at the very least to watch. And these are the types of shows that I really like, and I think that they were, maybe they're just a phenomenon or something, but I think when you're not writing a manga is typically written, or at least as far as I know, to be serialized and just like continue your story forever and ever and ever, right? And that's why I don't really like a lot of TV shows at all, because they can never end the story, which I think is a satisfying thing. If you look at something like, and I guess Evangelion's a bad example because they haven't ended it yet, and it's been like 30 years. But if you look at Samurai Champloo, it's one season, and if you look at Cowboy Bebop, it's one season. They wanted to tell this one story, and it's over, and that's it. So and you can always go back to it. And it has a concise beginning and end. So I think that's a really good way to tell. That is how stories are told. But like, that gives you some sort of satisfaction when you it's like reading a book, right? There's a concise beginning and ending. But manga tend to be serialized, and so they can continue selling more and continuing the story on. Like, One Piece,
it's like the difference
like 1,000
between
episodes or something.
Like I would say like How I Met Your Mother or Big Bang Theory or other like sitcoms.
Yeah.
Like, they start making lots of money for the network or whoever, so they keep going, even though the characters get more ridiculous, or the quality of the writing goes down, or there's like ideas are really, really low by the end of it, and like everybody slept with everybody's cousin. Whereas you have a story that's like Breaking Bad, which has a very distinct beginning and end point. And
exactly,
it feels like you feel satisfied by the ending. Like, you might want more, but then it's better to leave with more than to need less.
I think that's an example of a show that went pretty close to the perfect amount of seasons, right? You can have a show that's just one season, and that's not enough, right, for most people. I think Breaking Bad having 5 seasons gives you enough time to develop this crazy story arc and multiple story arcs within, of Jesse and Mr. White, with Walter White and Skylar, and even Walter's son, in that show. And I think it was like the perfect amount of time, one of close to it. If I don't know if someone want to say it's perfect or anything, but it's close to a good amount of episodes that there's a lot of meat on that bone, and there's also a lot to dive into, fan theories, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's also really well shot, and it's a great show. But otherwise, I haven't really gotten into anything else. But Ivan, whose career has not gone on long enough, but seems to be coming to a halt at the moment.
Might have got on long enough,
Yeah, perhaps it has. But we're here to talk about none other than Sinatraa, and we wanted to tie this conversation into a larger picture sort of situation. We're just using him as a talking point. He's not necessarily the most relevant person in the world, but if you play video games, particularly the top video game on Twitch, one of the top video games on Twitch, Valorant, you probably know his name. Sinatraa is... We came to know him. I don't know how old he is, actually. Do you know how old he is? He's probably like 19, 20.
He's like 20, I think.
So this is a 20-year-old kid. You hear about them all the time. Your parents keep hearing about these kids on the internet just playing video games for a living. How do they make so much money? It's because these guys are highly skilled video game players and first-person shooters, and they play on teams, got sponsorships, and the like. So this guy's, let's say he's 20. Who knows? I don't know how old he is.
He's 20. March 18th is his birthday.
Right? We remember talking about his birthday, don't we? I feel like we did.
Yeah, because he turned 18 in Season 1 of Overwatch League.
Yeah, so we were introduced to him in Overwatch League, where he played for the San Francisco Shock, one of the best teams in the league. We really like Overwatch, and I didn't necessarily like that team the most, but that's just because I was a fanboy for the NYXL, a bunch of Korean boys, This guy has some... He's switched over to Valorant, and then I don't think that's really relevant to the story, but that's just who he is, right? The story, as it goes, is that his ex-girlfriend has finally come out and accused him of sexually harassing her and even sexually assaulting her. So, and obviously, as the Me Too movement goes, we should obviously hear her story out and make a decision from there. But she needs to be heard. That is how it should be, of course. So she's released a whole...
they're
yes,
investigating.
Right, and there needs to be action at the very least, some sort of investigation. She's released a whole, as these things go, now on the internet, it's very popular when in these types of situations for someone to, whether it be a sexual assault or harassment allegation, or just I lied on the internet or something like that. People tend to go on Twitter and then say, here's the story, and then post a huge document detailing every single thing that happened. So she posts I believe it's a 9-page, it looks like a science article to me. It's like no, she didn't. I don't know. It's a lot of text. I'll put it in the chat for everyone, and then I'll send it to Ivan. I don't know if he has this open. But
yeah, I've got it open.
Oh, you have it open. Okay, so great. Sounds great. Everyone, you can go look at it there. I didn't read it all, but it includes various text messages that she has from Sinatraa, and she obviously goes into detail, very excruciating detail. So if you want to read it, it's there. I wanted to bring this up because I think that it's not. I mean, this is not uncommon in human interactions at all. Obviously, women have been getting sexually harassed for the entirety of human existence, and it's really sad and it sucks. I wanted to bring it up because I think this guy's in the limelight, and particularly he's a gamer. So I think that there's I don't necessarily want to draw any connections between him and literally every other gamer around, but I have noticed of recently that there have been a lot of sexual related allegations within the gamer community, and I wanted to know your opinion on it as well, Vaughn. I guess we can start with Sinatraa and then branch off.
Yeah, I mean, this is some very serious stuff. I think it's good that there are investigations by both Riot and the Valorant Professional League. I think his own team.
And Riot is the company that makes video games. They make the game, right? We're talking about
they
Riot?
make Valorant.
Yeah.
They also made League of Legends. League
Obviously.
of Legends.
So. The most popular game in the world, League of Legends.
Yeah. So Sinatraa is a huge star for them. Mm-hmm. He's been suspended, which is a big first step. Sinatraa won the MVP in the Overwatch League before hopping over to Valorant, which Riot is hoping to be kind of like the next big esport game, and to have one of their major stars who has brand recognition from other platforms and could bring in people from lots of different corners of esports.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Jimmy Fallon.
Sinatraa was on Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, he and Super from San Francisco Shock went on to Jimmy Fallon after they won Overwatch League.
And they just played Overwatch with him or something?
No, they just talked to him. It was an interview thing.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually cool.
So, he's a big star, and this is a very serious allegation, and it should be treated as such. And I'm glad that they are taking the steps, even though Riot is a company that has massive flaws in terms of their relationship with with women. Yeah. They've had a mass walkout from their studio. Mm-hmm. COO, CEO have had sexual harassment or some sort of other allegations put up against them. The way that they've handled internal hiring processes for passing up women when and giving all sorts of obviously biased responses as to why they were passed up versus male colleagues, etc. It's just I think this is one of those times where it's building to bigger that no matter how new the game is, the system is the same. It can allow for people to get lots of fame, some levels of entitlement, and then also kind of that carrying over into different aspects of people's lives, including relationships. And I think one of the things that is really difficult with esports in particular is we're dealing with a lot of people who are at a very young and formative age, and that obviously doesn't excuse behavior, but I think a lot of people growing up with this superstardom, for instance, in esports, right? That millions of people know your name, thousands of people watch you stream on Twitch or whatever, and then you get this kind of really different interpretation of yourself. You're always surrounded by online comments and Twitter and Instagram and all this stuff, and it generates it's a whole new playing field, I think, in terms of understanding what that all does to a young mind, and how that can affect and influence decision making or ideas of consent and power, which I think is going to be something that really needs to be looked at.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that they don't have anyone to. Is that these guys are the role models for people coming up who are trying, like in college right now. You could get which I think is cool. You can get a scholarship for playing video games. You can get like they're treating it as if you're in some ways like a D1 athlete, right? Because there's a lot of money to be made in professional esports, just like there is in professional sports. So these guys don't really have, because gaming is so new, right? They don't really have much of a role model to look up to, and they're the ones that, I mean, maybe I don't know how quickly these things move, but I assume it's within a matter of 2 or 3 years, right? Or even less, maybe 1 year, right? One day you're just a kid on Twitch or whatever you're doing, just playing Overwatch with your friends, the boys, and the next day, and you have a couple nights you spend, playing until 5 a.m. and then the next day, I don't know how quickly it was or how these guys got in contact with Overwatch League. How did they get drafted into it? I don't know that. But I would assume they got scouted at some tournament that they went to, something like that, and they ended up being offered a position on the San Francisco Shock, right? Let's say, I don't know how quickly that process is for them, but it doesn't seem like there is enough time to process it all, right? Like you were saying. It's a whole game shift, pardon the pun, of their whole life and everything that's happening, and now they're living in a gaming house. Now they're hanging out, like it's a beautiful place. They no longer have to be cramped on their desk playing like this, even though they still play like that in their games, in their professional games. And all of a sudden they're given all this sick swag and all the fucking Twitter followers and everything that they've ever wanted, and they worked hard for it, obviously, but it's like the whole culture that they're around, though, I assume, is a bunch of like parties and possibly drugs and alcohol, God forbid, but I don't know if that's true. But a
lot of them are young, so let's not assume, but that they have access to that. But what I will say is that it's a very masculine environment in terms of the gender dynamics.
I was trying to get into that.
Not a lot of women that are in esports for a variety of reasons. Either they're not encouraged to get into gaming or get into gaming the same way as young boys do growing up. From that to being denied a spot, there are not a lot of professional esports players that are women, and I think that not having that kind of balance there is important to understanding the kind of atmosphere that can be created, in addition to just the general problem that is across the industry, where there are a lot fewer women making games. Right. So it's not just limited to who's playing the games at whatever level. but it's also who's making the games. And so when you have an industry that across the verticality of that industry has gender dynamic problems, and clearly at some companies has just huge issues with that, like Riot has had in the past. Now you have, like, I think different ways of creating echoes of that and creating increasing the magnitude with which that can be acceptable, and that can lead to some really dangerous situations for women in that industry, for fans or whoever's around, and for the young men who are participating in these in whatever level or as players or as people who get into the industry. And I really think that a lot of crime and of this nature is both mindset and opportunity kind of melding together to create a really bad situation. And so you obviously must be held accountable for your actions and the actions that you take in whatever situation. But we also have to be mindful of how that situation is getting to be possible. So I think that creating more diversity in race, gender, sexual orientation, what have you, is going to be really important for people to be able to have different perspectives and kind of break some of the machismo masculinity that happens in esports. And I think that can also help provide a different mindset for a variety of people. Now, whether that is the case in Sinatra's case, I don't know. I don't know him personally. I really don't know a lot about him other than he played a fantastic Tracer at one point, and Zarya. But in terms of what his personality is or what's shaped him to get to the point that he is, I mean, he was always known as a really brash player, like teabagging and things like that. He came into the league and the mark on him was that he was very selfish. He was oriented mostly on getting his kills in a match. So there was obviously a big ego there, and and I think that he's spoken to how he had to become a team leader, etc. But maybe that ego carried forth into other places where he didn't listen and didn't ask for consent and didn't think to have consent be a major thing. But I think the investigation will play it out.
Yeah, it seems right. If you want excruciating details, you can read this whole 9-page document. But it's like we were saying. I think. I mean, I don't know. Again, we have no way of knowing who he is and how he was raised, and we don't really know much about the environment that he was in and how he got there for Overwatch League and the Sentinels on Valorant, right? Playing Valorant. Mm-hmm. And it seems like this happened, I think, a year ago to this woman. And she's, just built up the courage to talk about it. But I think, like you were saying, there is certainly a lot of just, a bunch of males playing video games. And I think that sort of environment to be in all the time is like definitely encourages you to be a certain way. I'm not saying it encourages you to go out and do all these horrible things that he allegedly did. I'm just saying there's certainly being part of a team, being part of these types of esports teams, and all the managers and the sponsorships and all those things encourage you to be a certain person. I'm not saying I know what that person is. I'm just trying to paint a picture that maybe maybe it's like it can seem a little out of his control in some ways, especially when you're 19 or 20. You don't necessarily, like, it's easy for me to say, I just turned 30, that you don't know what you're doing when you're 19 or 20, but it really does seem true now that I'm saying it, right? I think back 10 years ago, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Not that I did anything that I think was stupid, but I was a completely different person 10 years ago, and I hope Sinatraa can grow out of this, because it does seem like he made some really stupid mistakes, if these allegations are true, and I hope there's some something's done to stop this within the industry, right? So
push back a little on categorizing it as like saying stupid mistakes. So as much as that, he's responsible for his actions there, and as much as they are wrong, I don't know, like, generally, I just, again, this is a tough topic to talk about. So
right.
Let me just say that by saying like he made some stupid mistakes, I think it does take away his agency within that, and also the severity of the actions that are there.
Wrong.
Therein.
You're right.
Yeah, I just I think it's obviously like a topic that both of us want to engage in as allies of people, to make sure that people don't get sexually harassed or feel unsafe. We're obviously allies in promoting healthy sexual relationships and healthy just relationships in general. We're both doing our best to do that, and I think that, like you're saying, it's important for a person to acknowledge their actions, take control over them, and grow as much as they can from them. We're not all perfect, and there has to be some level of like punishment or administration to make sure that people get what they kind of deserve. And I think, like what we were talking about before, linking it back to this, is like, just because race is mentioned doesn't mean it's racism, right?
Right.
When we're talking here, it's like women should be heard, investigated fully, punish people for whatever actions they've done that are wrong. But as well, I think it's also important to move people towards that ability to grow and heal from it in both directions, the victim and the abuser, to be able to try and get to a position where they can learn from it and become a better person to inform their future actions. Because as much as like punishment is really important, I'm always a believer in restorative practices and restorative justice, and however long that journey takes for somebody who hurts another person, commits crimes, etc., that they can move towards a place where they get to understand their victims and become a better person for it.
Right. I think I agree with that statement for sure. It would be best to, as long as it would, okay. I mean, yes, it would be best if they can have some sort of path to understanding what they did was wrong and all that stuff, right? And yeah, I hope it all sorts itself out. I wanted to compare the sort of mentality, or at least, obviously we're not esports people. We'll never be that good, but my understanding of how it is to be an esports player from the outside is that it's just like, you live in this house and you game all day, and of course you're going through these really rigorous drills, and like to become it's like you're really practicing really hard to be very skilled at what you do.
And speaking of, like, we work 10-hour days, like they do,
right.
12, 14-hour days of gaming too.
Yeah, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems to me like they are, you know, around these crazy parties and that type of stuff, you know, if they win or something, you know, there's a huge celebration, whatever. And I just wanted to go back to, like, there's definitely encouragement for them to do certain things, I would probably say, based off of what the team is doing or sponsorships or that type of thing. So I wanted to compare it to, I've recently, you know, been talking to a couple of friends and like our neighbor as well, and Nikki's friends. They work at startup companies, and there's a certain culture around some startup companies to have like alcohol everywhere at the workplace, which I personally don't think is a very professional thing to do. I think it's great to get drinks with your coworkers after work or something, you know, to unwind throughout the day, but I don't think that it really has much place in the workplace during work hours. I think it's really unprofessional to do that type of thing, especially if you're trying to you know, have any sort of professionalism in reality. But I think, I guess, unless your product is alcohol, I guess that's an exception. But like they were telling me stories of like, oh, we just did this huge thing at work. Let's take shots. It's like that type of sort of culture sort of exists in a lot of startups, not all startups. I'm making a generalization, but that type of thing, that type of encouragement, and then the whole social order of you're going to be shamed if you don't take shots or whatever and get drunk at work, sort of compounds, and you sort of now have to live this life, and it's like a weird thing that goes on, that's, I guess, in some way, like it can be degrading to your lifestyle and that type of stuff, but it can also encourage you to be a certain way. Maybe you get into that type of stuff, and that's how you go down that path. So I'm not saying that this is how it is in esports, but I could see a world in which, not necessarily alcohol related, but other things, I don't know, whatever it is, that he could have been encouraged to do certain things and act a certain way around certain people. So I mean, I know I have to be vague because I have no specifics at all, but like, I don't know. I could see that he might have been a certain person before he was an esports star, and then he was an esports star, and now he's a different person, is what I'm trying to say, which is entirely possible.
It is possible. Yeah, from this, in this particular case, from the description that's given, I think it has a lot more to deal with like power dynamic and like a truly abusive relationship in terms of like making sure that he knew where his girlfriend was at all times, and if she wasn't in the place that she was supposed to be, that he would threaten to break up with her or get mad at her, and also dealing with like when she didn't want to have sex and she wanted to stop, that he wanted to continue and things like that. Like, I think that exists mostly outside of the dynamics that you're talking about, but right, I think that at times it might, because maybe some of these events were alcohol or whatever inspired, and that could have been the case. But I think going back to your point of like alcohol everywhere, terrible idea, especially when the relationship with alcohol is like, let's take shots. Like there's a German approach to drinking during the workday, which is like everybody can have a beer with their lunch. It's so great. And then it's like the American approach, which is like everybody works hard. They're all super stressed. They're working incredibly long hours, making just enough money to get by. Let's all fucking take shots because we're finally accomplishing the stress relief.
What's up? I've been noticing this a lot with a lot of people. Maybe it's because I started working in the service industry, but it's a lot of, maybe it's an American thing, I guess. You can generalize it that way, but a lot of people here are like, oh, we work so hard. All right, let's go drink. But there's no intermediate, let's go have dinner, then have drinks. Or let's have drinks while we're eating. Like, and I can't stand it. I refuse to do it anymore. I'm done. It's because I've been roped into it too many times, and I'm just like way too drunk and
drinking on an empty stomach, and it's terrible.
It is the worst possible thing you can do to your body. Those of you listening who are just coming of drinking age, 21, 22, just eat something first. That's all you have to do. Just do that, and at the very least, you'll make it.
And drink water.
You'll make it to the next day. Yeah, drink water too, of course. But
you know, great way to drink water and alcohol at the same time is vodka soda. Spike Seltzer.
Spike Seltzer sponsored the podcast. We love you guys. You guys sort of disappeared. White Claw sort of took over.
White Claw absolutely stole their corner.
We'd rather be sponsored by Spike Seltzer, but White Claw, you want to throw some money our way? We'll take it. Everyone can be bought, Ivan. Just look at Bethesda.
Well, that was a very nonchalant and easy way to close out a podcast dealing with a very heavy topic.
Everyone's got their price, Ivan. Everyone's got their price.
Which is why which is why it's also surprising that these allegations are taken with such seriousness that Sinatraa was suspended already, and they're going into the investigation. So, yes, everybody has their price, but when your superstar is getting
the price,
you know, some people, some organizations are willing to take the price of like, okay, we'll put him on suspension, we'll investigate him fully, we'll see what happens. And other places like the NFL are like, oh, this guy physically punched a woman. Oh, we're going to cut him, but the NFL doesn't bar him from playing football. He just gets to go to play for another team. Totally cool.
Do you think that's you know how I think we were discussing not earlier, but at some point when you can be too big to be taken out, right? Like you're too famous to fail. Do you think that's the level of stardom in the sports world that someone in the NFL, like, let's say, I'm not saying LeBron James ever did a goddamn thing, but let's say someone of the level of LeBron James, right? He's the most famous basketball star. He's making Space Jam 2. He's the man.
Kobe Bryant was,
as far as I know,
went to court for this kind of stuff.
I don't know anything about these people. I don't watch sports at all, so I don't know. But they're obviously much more famous than Sinatraa, right? So do you think it's the level of stardom that's getting this? Is that a completely unrelated topic, or?
I don't. I think, like, let's say Kareem Hunt, who allegedly or did, I don't remember the exact story, punch a woman, or was around people who physically assaulted a woman, and that's why the Chiefs cut him.
Jesus Christ.
And then the Cleveland Browns picked him up later and play him. He played in the playoffs this past season. It's like, I just think that NFL teams have fucking no morals. They're just like, whatever, as long as we can attempt to win a game, it's fine. There was no video, there was no pictures, there's just a story. But like when Ray Rice punched a woman, that was recorded on video in the elevator of a hotel. He knocked her out cold and then dragged her into the elevator. There was a video and they couldn't do anything about it. He was gone. But at the same time, Ray Rice was already kind of at the end of his career. So it was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think as long as people are useful and can provide some sort of talent to ensure a victory on a football field, it's going to be a very wishy-washy thing as to whether or not they're actually going to uphold the morals that we all hold or teach children. Like, don't punch each other, especially don't punch defenseless women when you're hyped up like football player.
Who we've also discussed this on this podcast. I don't know if you remember. We had a podcast about about basically the repeated trauma to football players' heads. CTE, that's it. And how it can develop over the course of a couple years or just a couple impacts, honestly.
Should we still be playing football is the title of that pod, I think.
We've discussed that very long time ago. I'd have to find which episode it is. But yeah, that's the type of stuff that could potentially contribute to this type of behavior.
I think there is. There is a level of fame and money that you can get to where you can spin things away from yourself, or that you're just too well recognized and beloved for the general public to care. Like, I mean, O.J. Simpson for a lot of people was like, maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. There was a large section of the black community that was like rallying around him because of the relationship with the LAPD. There's Michael Jackson versus R. Kelly.
Him, so.
One of them, very different stories, but also R. Kelly had like one song, and it's the other person is Michael Jackson. So I think there is something to the level of fame in the public eye, but it shouldn't have any effect in the justice system, but it probably does.
This is America, right? We elected Donald Trump. What do you want?
I want us to be better.
I know. We should all be better. We should be so much better. We really should, and we need to figure it out. Anyways,
and you'll be better off if you listen to more of our podcasts and participate in the conversation. So leave a comment, let us know. Come join us on Twitch when we stream. You can follow either twitch.tv/jujubesgood or my Twitch, which I think is twitch.tv/Comrade Boyer. And I do our stream on mine. I host you. I'm pretty sure I still do. So, go watch that. Go join us. Go comment in various places. Let us know. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you.
Oh, shit. Your cat is crazy.
Julien.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to go deal with that.
Whole podcast worth it. That was awesome. Oh, God.
Bye,
everyone,
guys.
you need to watch the video for the perfect timing. Oh, my God. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.